So where did SARS-CoV-2 come from? Well, as we all know, it jumped naturally from wildlife to people. Anyone who thinks the virus was engineered and escaped from the lab in Wuhan is just wrong. We know this because the Chinese authorities said so. It came from a wet market in Wuhan. SARS-1 in 2002 emerged when bat virus had first spread to civets, which is a cat-like mammal, and then to humans. MERS, or Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, emerged in 2012 when a bat virus had first spread to camels and then to humans. Now, SARS-1 and MERS are both beta coronaviruses, and the fact that the Wuhan Institute of Virology is close to the wet market where this definitely came from is just a coincidence. In fact, the Lancet said so. In 2020, a group of leading virologists wrote, "We stand together to strongly condemn conspiracy theories suggesting that COVID-19 does not have a natural origin. People wondered if it was far too soon to make such a definitive statement, but they were wrong." The letter was drafted by Peter Daszak, and he's president of the EcoHealth Alliance of New York. He's an expert, and if you disagree with him, you're wrong, because we have to trust the experts. And it's irrelevant that Dr. Daszak's organization was closely involved with coronavirus research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So if the SARS-2 virus had indeed escaped Wuhan, Dr. Daszak would be potentially culpable in the deaths of millions, and there would be a massive conflict of interest. But trust the experts. Now, there's a thing called gain-of-function research, whereby scientists create viruses more dangerous than those which currently exist. This is fine as long as you maintain strict biohazard protocols, and by getting ahead of nature, you can cure diseases before they happen. So if SARS-CoV-2 had indeed escaped, there might be one or two people with concerns about the deaths, injuries, and total economic destruction, but that didn't happen because it's all a conspiracy theory. There was another letter in March 2020 in the Journal of Nature Medicine where 5 leading virologists said quite clearly, "Our analysis clearly shows that SARS-CoV-2 is not a laboratory construct or a purposely manipulated virus." So that's it, case closed. And we know that's true because the older methods of cutting and pasting viral genomes leave clear signs of manipulation. Now, there are more modern seamless approaches which leave no defining marks, and there's also a method called serial passage when virus cells are repeatedly transferred from one culture of cells to another, but the virologist said this was not a laboratory construct. So far, the Chinese haven't provided any actual evidence to support the natural emergence thing as a theory, but they're obviously telling the truth. This is quite unusual because both SARS-1 and MERS left lots of evidence in the environment. The intermediary host species for SARS-1 was identified within about 4 months of the outbreak, and with MERS it was identified within 9 months. We're now 18 months into SARS-CoV-2, but the usually diligent Chinese have failed to find either the original bat population, the intermediate species, or any credible evidence of any Chinese population, including that of Wuhan, had ever been exposed to this virus prior to December of 2019. Well, you say, what if SARS-CoV-2 had jumped straight from bats to people without an intermediate host? If that had happened, it wouldn't change much. Therefore, it should be good at still infecting bats. But it's not. None of that matters. Trust the experts. Now, the spike proteins we've heard so much about can be manipulated to determine which species of animal it will target. As early as 2000, Dutch researchers were able to genetically engineer the spike protein of a mouse coronavirus so it would attack only cats. Extraordinary. So, naturally enough, the bat coronaviruses, which were the source of both SARS-1 and MERS epidemics, were closely studied. Researchers wanted to understand what changes needed to occur in the virus's spike proteins before it could infect people. The Wuhan Institute looked at over 100 bat coronaviruses. By November of 2015, the Chinese, working with Americans, created a novel virus by taking the backbone of the SARS-1 virus and replacing its spike protein with one from another bat virus. The manufactured virus was able to identify cells in the human airway when tested in a lab culture of cells. These are known as chimera viruses because the genome contains genetic material from 2 strains of virus. So it's completely obvious to anyone who understands nuance that such an accidental escape of SARS-CoV-2 would have been a disaster, but that didn't happen. Now, a Dr. Shizheng Li, who is one of China's leading experts on bat viruses and who works at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, started work on genetically engineering coronaviruses which attack human cells. Now, this part is definitely true because the work was funded by the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and that's a part of the United States National Institute of Health. The grant proposals that funded her work are a matter of public record. They specify precisely what she planned to do with the money. The grants were assigned to Dr. Daszak of the EcoHealth Alliance, remember him? And he subcontracted them to Dr. Shi. Now, the ban on gain-of-function research was lifted in the USA in late 2017, but it's still quite a controversial topic. And of course, there's no evidence whatsoever that Dr. Shi generated SARS-CoV-2 in her lab because her records have been sealed. Remember, innocent people always go to great lengths to cover their tracks, and Dr. Shi is obviously innocent. We do know, however, that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was systematically constructing novel chimeric coronaviruses and was assessing their ability to infect human cells. But that's just a coincidence. Remember, Dr. Daszak has been telling us for 18 months that the lab escape is a ludicrous conspiracy theory invented by China bashers, and he's right. Now, once you've generated a novel coronavirus that can attack human cells, you can take the spike protein and make it the basis for a vaccine. And strangely enough, that's exactly what seems to have happened. Now, sometimes viruses escape from even the best run laboratories. The smallpox virus escaped 3 times from labs in England in the 60s and 70s, causing 80 cases and 3 deaths. Viruses have leaked out of labs around the world almost every year since. Indeed, SARS-1 escaped from laboratories in Singapore, Taiwan, and 4 times from the Chinese National Institute of Virology in Beijing. So this can and does happen, but it didn't happen here. That's just a conspiracy theory. Now, there are a couple of tests we can apply to prove this isn't a lab escape, just a conspiracy theory. First, geography. The closest known relative of the SARS-CoV-2 virus was seen in bats living in caves in Yunnan, which is a province in southern China. If SARS-CoV-2 had first been seen naturally in people from Yunnan, that would be strong evidence the virus had spilled over to people naturally. However, the first cases appeared in Wuhan, 1,500 kilometers away, where the lab is. Beta coronaviruses infect the horseshoe bat, which ranges across southern China. The bat can fly about 50 kilometers, so it could not have made it to Wuhan unaided. Also, the first cases of COVID-19 seem to have appeared in September when the bats were entering hibernation. The Wuhan lab escape scenario seems much more obvious, but that's a conspiracy theory which didn't happen. Next, we have viral evolution. Viruses don't simply go from one species to another. The coronavirus spike protein is adapted to attack bat cells. This then needs to be repeated for the virus to successfully jump to another species. Most of the mutations make no difference or actually degrade the virus. However, an occasional mutation, a change in one of the RNA units, causes a different amino acid unit to be incorporated into the spike protein, and this can make the said spike protein better able to attack cells from another species. Now, this needs to happen through several cycles for optimum transmissibility. Now, we're lucky SARS-1 is quite well documented. We can map the successive changes in its spike protein as the virus evolved, step by step, into a dangerous pathogen. After it moved into bats from civets, there were 6 further changes in its spike protein before it became a mild pathogen in people. After a further 14 changes, the virus was better adapted to humans, and with a final 4, the epidemic really took off. That's 24 mutations in total. SARS-CoV-2, by contrast, hardly changed at all. Only recently have we seen mutations, and each one is apparently more deadly according to the news. From its very first appearance, when it was detected in late 2019, SARS-CoV-2 appeared to be already pre-adapted to human transmission. Early strains identified in Wuhan showed limited genetic diversity, which suggests the virus may have been introduced from a single source. So again, the Wuhan lab escape scenario seems much more obvious, but that's just a conspiracy theory. It didn't happen. So where does that leave us? Well, we know SARS-1 and MERS came from bats through intermediate animal hosts, which were quickly identified. We're still searching for the host for SARS-CoV-2. We've seen confirmations from internationally recognized virologists who are funding gain-of-function research of this exact type have said, nothing to do with me, Gov, and they definitely don't have an obvious, clear conflict of interest involving the deaths of millions. We know that it is possible to use modern methods of viral manipulation which leave no trace in terms of evidence of the changes. We know that Wuhan produced chimeric viruses, and the Institute of Virology started working on genetically engineering coronaviruses to attack human cells. That's a matter of public record in the US. We know that accidental viral releases from labs occur regularly, and there are 4 recorded occasions when SARS-1 escaped from the Chinese National Institute of Virology in Beijing. We know the closest known relative of the SARS-CoV-2 virus is in bats living in Yunnan, a province in southern China, over 1,500 kilometers away, and bats have a range of about 50 kilometers. We know that no one in Yunnan initially got sick. This all started in Wuhan. We know the viruses typically go through multiple mutations to optimally adapt cross species, but SARS-CoV-2 was seen already pre-adapted to human transmission. And this is exactly what you'd expect from gain-of-function research. And we know that the ever admirable Chinese aren't releasing their records, as innocent people always do. So, even though the facts, as far as they can be determined, seem to support the lab escape theory in every single case we've discussed, it's obvious that the WHO and the Chinese are telling the truth, and this naturally emerged from bats. Anyone who doubts this is a conspiracy theorist who probably doesn't even wear masks and won't take the vaccine. Trust the experts and the media, folks. They wouldn't lie to you. Thanks for watching. If you like this, please like, recommend, and subscribe.